We're here this morning in one of our rotationally grazed paddocks looking at some water system features. And this is our summer water tank for about 100 head of cows. It has a old oil container that's white that's just hanging in there on a weight, and that floats around for a visual indicator of water level. Whenever it's really hot, we check our waters every day to make sure everything's working fine with it, but most of the time you can just look up and see that white thing moving around. You know that the water's good. This water is installed in an old fence line, and this fence line also carries our hot wire out to other parts of the farm, and it's set, everything's sitting on a bed of gravel that's underlaid with landscape fabric. And this runs off of a hydrant. We also have a frost-free water next door, but a small frost-free water will just not provide the rim space that's needed for summer when you have a lot of cattle that are wanting to drink during the hot weather. So we use these poly tanks in the summer, shut them down, drain them in the winter, and just leave them in place. They last for years and get along really well with that. Since our paddocks are small and the animals don't have to walk a long distance to water, this is more than adequate rim space for 100 head of cows in the summer. I might mention again the rock's very important. Two features. One, that you use fabric under it to support the rock. It saves a lot of money on rock. The cattle don't really like standing on the rock that well, so they tend to come in and drink and then move on. The other thing is to put your waters on top of a well-drained spot. I've actually moved some waters on the farm that I originally put in for spacing, and because they were not on a high spot, they tended to get muddy or started erosion. So I moved the waters to a better drained location, and it's worked a lot better, even though they're not perfectly 100 yards or whatever in distance. Another feature of this water setup that's a little bit different is this game camera. Now this game camera is on a portable stand. It's also, I made it collapsible portable stand. It has a little step in down here so you can just move it whenever you want. And I used to wire it to the fence and make sure that the stock wouldn't move it or whatnot, but they never bother it. I guess it looks like a fence post to them, and it's close to the fence and they leave it alone. This particular game camera is a cellular game camera, and by that I mean that it has its own dedicated phone line, and it takes a picture and sends it to my phone. So that however I set this camera up, and you can set it up to take videos, you can set it up to take a picture anytime something moves, which is not really very practical when it's a stock tank because there's animals moving here all the time, and it's just taking pictures all the time, and sending your phone is just buzzing with photos coming in, and also uses a lot of battery. So I have it take a photo every hour and send it to my phone, day and night. And why do I need that? Well, it's really handy if you're going away for the weekend. Say you're going to a neighboring town, or you're going to a neighboring state, or I could be in a neighboring country. It will send me a picture of the water so that I know that the water is full and that the cattle are getting all the water they need. I have very few problems with the water, but it's just that assurance so that if something does go wrong, you have a storm, something goes wrong with the pump, the lightning shuts the electricity down or whatever, I can call somebody and say, hey, would you check the water in paddock B3, or you need to turn them into a pond or whatever because it's hot and they need water. Never had to do that yet, but this just gives assurance that I know what my water is doing. I can see a lot of uses for these cameras. If I had a farm, say 10, 20 miles away that I was having to drive to every day to check the water, I could use a camera like this and save quite a bit of money on travel and time. You could use it in a foaling barn, calving barn, use it as a game camera, use it for home security. You could even set it up so you could, if the land laid right, so you could see the whole 40 acres or whatever and see what your cattle were doing as well as the water. So pretty handy. Now the downside is it's not cheap. These cameras cost about $300. They tend to use quite a few batteries, and most of them have to have lithium batteries, which are more expensive, and you have to pay for the phone line, which on this one is about $10 a month. So you end up with several $100s a year that you have tied up in this camera. That adds to your expenses. But if it's something that you really find useful, it's not that expensive to make sure that your waters or whatever are working fine. What we're looking at here is a little different diagnostic tool for determining when the well is, the pump in the well is running to send water to our paddock system and our grazing system here. Behind this door is the breaker box for the whole farmstead, including the 240 volt line that's running out to the well. And on that line running to the well, we installed a little relay that determines when there's an amperage load being drawn. In other words, when the pump kicks on, it draws amperage and it flips this relay and causes it to light this little light right up here in our kitchen, by our kitchen table. So we know day or night when the pump has turned on and is running. The little box just sits inside the breaker box and is wired into that line running to the well. And when the pump kicks on, the light kicks on. It's building up pressure in the pressure tank right now. And then when the pump shuts off, that light will shut off. And why do you need to know that? We don't really need to know the pump's kicking on and off. It does it hundreds of times a day when 100 head of cattle are watering on it. What we really need to know is if the pump doesn't turn off. That means there could be a broken water line to the cattle, could be somebody left water on in the greenhouse or some other place here on the farmstead and the pump's just working and working, and we need to know that.